back to the Ridge podcast. You're here with Fred and Meg. This week we're talking all about debt repayment.
Yep, I love it.
We have a lot of thoughts.
We do. I've thought a lot about this.
This is relevant because Americans are in a lot of debt.
They are. What's the stats?
So I pulled this from the Ramsey Solutions website, Dave Ramsey's company, and they say that Americans are $17.5 trillion in debt.
Oh, so only half the U.S. government's debt.
Oh, sure.
So we're doing
great.
They're not
As individuals. The data that I pulled from them breaks it down to like almost $67,000 per adult.
Okay.
Which.
And that is among all types of debt. And so it doesn't matter, consumer, home, car, student loan.
Yeah. I have some breakdowns if we want to talk about those. So 17.5 trillion in any debt.
Okay.
We've got 1.13 trillion in credit card debt, 1.6 trillion in student loans, 1.6 in auto loans, and 12.25 trillion in mortgage loans.
It's big.
It's a lot of money. I would love it if you talk us through why someone might be thinking about debt repayment.
You want to get out of debt.
You want to get out of debt. Maybe you've gotten yourself into a little bit of a pickle.
Yeah. I mean, that's the idea. You could theoretically maintain a debt balance for the rest of your life. As long as your income can pay off the payments, you're fine, in a sense. So really you have to be motivated to want to get out of debt for some reason. And I think that's a personal choice.
I think from my own personal experience and then my sister's as well, looking at that student loan balance and thinking about the amount of time it's going to take to pay that off was a real motivator for, all right, let's start working on this.
I think it is definitely a mental health concern for people. They think when they see the balance and they think, oh man, I've got to make payments, there's kind of like a handcuffs on them for their whole life. They have to take specific jobs that pay enough. That might be not what they want to do, but they have to do it, or take on multiple jobs to pay the debt. And so their past lifestyle has handcuffed their current self and future self. And so if you want to have a little bit more freedom getting out of any of those debts.
If you're thinking about the journey to financial freedom, this is going to be one of our big steps, right?
And I guess mortgage, because they put mortgage under consumer debt. Under those terms, if you talk to Robert Kiyosaki, for example, that's not part of the journey. Stay in that type of consumer debt because he sees it as a good debt versus things that are just expenses as bad debts.
Depreciating assets, bad debts.
Bad debt.
We're going to start talking about the actual plan. You've decided you got to pay down your debt for whatever motivation you're doing it. First things first, you got to get honest. And we've said this before on the podcast about really knowing what's going on with your finances. But if you're going to pay down your debt, you have to know how much do I owe to whom and what interest rate.
So list them all out.
But I would say in something that you could revisit probably, right?
Sure. I like the idea of a spreadsheet simply because it allows you to do the math in some cases of figuring out which one you should pay off first.
So you're going to get honest, you're going to find out how much you owe, how, like your balance, and then the interest rate, and who you got to pay.
Hopefully you know that. Hopefully you're doing it.
Hopefully you know that. I could see a world where maybe somebody has some automatic payments or hasn't checked their balance in a while. They just know this is the minimum payment. But taking the time to really hash through everything, especially if you have several different kinds of debts to several different entities.
There is a step before figuring out what to pay off first. And that's, I believe that you should restructure your debt first.
Okay.
As in, once you get it all listed out, you're going to see that you have really high interest rates on some things, lower interest rates on others. And obviously the whole concept of a snowball or an avalanche is starting from the position of where you are, but it doesn't take into consideration that you can refinance. You can turn high interest credit card loans into a personal loan with a slightly lower interest rate. Or you can take out a loan that is secured by your house or your car that ends up being a lower interest rate than what you owe on your credit card. So as long as you're serious about getting out of debt and not just taking out additional loans, because you could get yourself in a worse position if you don't have that strictness with yourself in spending. So convert high interest loan balances into lower interest loan balances and then do the analysis.
Then you're gonna prioritize. So you gotta pay your minimum payments on everything, and then you're gonna pay some extra. With your extra, you have to prioritize where that extra is gonna go. And there are a few different strategies. One's called the debt snowball, one's called the debt avalanche, and one's called Fred's snowball's avalanche special.
It's just a little bit of a both situation.
Okay.
I don't think the wild card's just an addition to either of them,
Okay.
I believe. But do you want me to explain?
I would love that.
Okay, so a snowball is when you line all the debts up and you start paying off extra, again, because you're already paying just the minimum on all of them, what you have to pay, you're paying that. You add additional payment to the lowest balance debt. Once you pay that off, you turn it into a snowball so that the amount of money you were paying on that, you now apply to the next debt.
Just to clarify, when you say the amount of money, you mean both the minimum
principal, like
and
the minimum
extra
amount, the extra that you were paying to help pay down your debt, you apply both of those to your next payment, which already has its minimum as well. And so all three of those sources of money are going to be used to pay down the next one. And then you roll those three into the next, which turns into 4 sources of payment in a sense. And that's why it has the name snowball, because it's getting bigger and bigger as you go down the line. Which also means your debt is getting smaller and smaller.
I love that. Dave Ramsey recommends this method.
Yeah, I'll explain the avalanche method
sure,
first, and then why the snowball might be better.
Okay.
Because for some it's not.
Some it's no.
Okay, the avalanche method of debt repayment is where you line up your debts in order of highest interest rate first, down to the lowest interest rate. You pay the minimums on all of them, just like in the snowball method, but you apply an extra payment to the debt that has the highest interest rate. And the logic behind that is that you will pay off the debts faster that way and pay less interest because you're paying the highest interest ones first. There may be some scenarios in which the snowball and the avalanche line up, which is great, but oftentimes the highest interest rate is also a larger loan. It can be. And so that is why sometimes the snowball is better, because people, from a psychological standpoint, want that satisfaction of having finished something, having paid it off.
Yeah.
And so if that is you, the snowball might be better because it gives you that win sooner. Whereas the avalanche method may delay, it may take a while. Like I currently am applying, in an avalanche method, I am paying down the different components of my student loan. And so I'm paying the highest interest rate first. Now I'm snowballing within them because I have like 4 different distributions that were at a higher interest rate. And so I'm paying the lowest balance of those first. And so I'm technically using snowball and avalanche together. But I'm using the avalanche. And I am fine with that because I'm just looking into the future and it's all just math for me. And I know I'm going to pay off and save more on interest by paying the higher interest loans first.
Yeah. You're playing the long game here.
Yeah, I hope it's not too long. I don't want it to be a forever one.
No, but that's why, you have to figure out what works better for you. If you're a numbers person and you can see the progress you're making with an avalanche, great, or the benefit of an avalanche, great. If you are someone who maybe your brain's not wired that way and you need like some small wins along the way of this long game, snowball could be good for you.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
Now, I will throw in my addition. And what it is if you come across an extra chunk of money, I'm going to say extra chunk, I have money saved up and I know how much I'm going to earn for the rest of the year. And actually into next year, like I've already started scheduling out that far in advance. And what I what I can see is if I don't have any other additional sources of income, which sometimes I do through investments or through gifts, like we have received money from parents, for example, you know, I'm not expecting any of that. So what I did is I looked out and said, okay, I have enough money and income already planned that I will have this money through the next year. What I noticed is that I'm going to have money in savings the whole time, a certain amount. And it's good to have money there, but it's also a decreasing amount, like slowly going down. And that's probably just because of inflation, we're spending more as well. So like, because my balance is going down over time, it doesn't run out until around a year from now. Theoretically, if everything goes normal, I get no other sources of income. Because I know I'm fine, what I have done is taken a chunk of money that I know I would be paying over the next 4 months as part of what would be a minimum, and I applied it all right now, and then forwarded the payment on those. So it will look like I have already made 4 months of payments, but I made them now. And anyway, I obviously will lose the interest in my savings account, which is almost nothing, but I will then save the interest on the 3 extra months of payments that I made earlier on a higher interest amount. And so it's just a way to bring down interest when I know I already have the money available for future minimum payments.
So we've got a few different strategies. We've got the debt snowball, we've got the avalanche, and then we've got sort of the, I'm gonna call it lump sum forward payment strategy.
Yeah.
All right, so that's just sort of like debt repayment on your own.
Okay.
Those are the things you can do as someone who's personally managing their money. There are also some things that you can do, in theory, to get whatever entity you owe involved.
Yeah.
One we sort of touched on already, which is consolidation. You're involving another company, or maybe 2, in getting that principal down to a lower interest rate. We can also talk about settlement. Now, I can't say much about this because I've never gone through this myself, but there are scenarios where maybe you owe a large sum of money to a company and you work with them to say, I'll pay this amount at this time if you forget the rest.
Yeah, I think a lot of times that happens through legal channels, like people hire an attorney or a debt specialist to help them figure that out. I've never done that either. But I have had helped others with medical expense kind of negotiations. When they get out of the hospital, they get a bill and it says $4,200. They're like, yikes, and they call, say, hey, what would it be if I paid it all right now?
Yeah.
And they do give a discount. It was, I think, 10 or 15%.
Oh, that's great.
And so, anyway, that is one way to reduce some of your debts.
Yeah. Now, outside of medical bills, maybe legal routes is your best.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that you have to go a legal route, but that is how I have seen it traditionally, just because I have been in the legal practice, in the legal field myself. And so people who are like approaching bankruptcy, they're going to be reaching out to these entities and doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And so someone that I know also had restructured their debt by approaching a third party that will then go to the other creditors and negotiate down a different payment. Yeah. And they'll make money on whatever split. So they'll probably negotiate it down to 50%, and then they'll charge the debtor, 70%. And so they save, the debtor still saves 30%, but this company makes like 20%.
Gotcha.
That's my understanding of how it financially makes sense for someone to help you do that.
Got it. And that's like the third party in this instance. Could that be collections?
I don't think that would be a collection agency.
Okay.
I think collection is on the other side who the third party is negotiating with.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that often the debt collection agency has bought your debt from the real creditor. And so because the creditor could not collect from you, it is bad debt for them. So they sell it to a collection agency, and the collection agency is getting paid on what they can collect.
Got it.
So they have paid who knows what, 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar, whatever it is, it's a discount. And so they're making their money on the split between what they paid for it and what they collect from you.
Gotcha.
So they're willing to collect a reduced amount because they've already bought it for a lower amount.
All right, up next, this one says management plan where you work with a credit counseling agency.
I think that's the same thing as the third party and restructuring your debt.
Okay.
So they, obviously in one scenario, the debt collection agency has purchased the debt. In this scenario, it's still a third party, but they're helping negotiate a discount.
Okay.
Or a longer term, or a reduced interest rate. Something that helps you be able to make payments.
Yeah.
And so it's very likely that you will have to pay them for their services.
Finally, we have bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk me through some pros and cons of it? Like, how much do you know about bankruptcy?
I have dealt with a couple of entities that were going through bankruptcy, and so it was typically Chapter 11, I believe, which is the restructuring form of bankruptcy, which just means that they cannot pay their debts on the current terms, and so they're finding a different way. The court is forcing the companies, the creditors, to accept payment on different terms. And there's likely those terms can be interest rate, they can be duration, or they can be the amount of principal that's going to get paid back.
Okay.
And what happens is, because this is a company, so because it's a company, it's going to have income, so they have to prove to the court what their future income is going to look like, what they can afford to pay, and then they restructure according to that.
Got it.
And so then the creditors get all paid off. With people, and Chapter 7, I think they're the same, where it's the person does not have enough money and things are getting wiped. The debts are getting cleared off. Maybe there is a component of that where the court says you do have some money, so you have to pay something. I don't know if that's the case.
Okay.
I do know that there are protected assets. So your primary home, I believe, in most states, if not all of them, cannot be sold.
I didn't know that.
They can't force you. There are certain protected assets, and so someone can actually have a chance at a new start after going through bankruptcy. But on the downside, it's on your record for like 7 years, and you have to deal with having bad credit. People won't lend you money. So you have to get used to the envelope system. Do it.
Yeah. But there are situations, as far as my understanding, where bankruptcy is the best
Like the
option.
only option?
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, people do it, so yeah. I do think that, one thing that we haven't talked about as far as options is reach out to your family for help. Like, I believe that families should help each other. So, helping each other in this type of situation.
Yeah. Up next, we're talking about tips for staying on track in your debt repayment. And this is really important because, again, if you have a large amount of debt, this is a long game. You're not going to be able to pay this off in a couple months, or even sometimes in a couple years. I mean, this can be
10 to 20.
decades worth of...
Sounds like a business.
I'm so sorry to say it this way, but it can be a long time. So, tips for staying on track. Going back to your budget, making sure you've got a good, solid budget that only uses money that you actually have, like how much you're making, not more than that. Cutting unnecessary spending. If you're making debt repayment a priority, that means maybe you're not playing pickleball, or maybe you're not going to Comic-Con.
Wow.
I'm just trying to cover all interests here.
Yeah.
My
Our friends
girlfriend.
are interested in different things.
Yeah. We need to
Very varied.
show everyone that you can manage your money no matter where you are.
Stop buying all the yarn.
Stop buying yarn, Megan. My girlfriend and her husband, she really wants to stay home. And he also wants that for her.
Yeah.
Right now they're in a season where they're gonna pay off some debt before she does that. So their priority is debt repayment. Soon it will be her staying home. But for now, their priority is that.
Cool.
So, yeah. Just gotta decide what your priorities are. Next one feels obvious, but some friends might need a reminder. Avoid new debt. If you're trying to get out of debt, don't add to the problem.
Yeah, this is an idea that is really, when you are down there, the bottom of the barrel, I'm going to say financially, it's very hard to stick to that because emergencies happen. I know someone who had a car breakdown. Okay, you have to go into the debt, it feels like. And maybe you do. Maybe that's where you get help from friends or family.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where you pick up an extra job. I don't know. But it's very, very hard, and I get that. And so try to avoid that new debt as much as you can.
I was thinking about medical debt as you were saying that. I could see where that's a really
Yeah, you can.
hard cycle too. Yeah. Last one, stay motivated.
How do you stay motivated though?
Just do it.
Just do it? Is that it?
No. I would say, think about your goal. Why are you getting out of debt? What are you trying to accomplish? For my girlfriend and her husband, it's so that she can stay home. They will be able to afford that better when they're out of debt.
Yeah. For me, a way to stay motivated is realistic expectations and the idea of controlling what is controllable and forgetting the other things or not worrying about them. So obviously here, if you have a 10-year future debt repayment plan, that's how long it's going to take. You have to come back to that and realize that that's just the way it is. What you can control are the things we've already talked about. Setting your budget, cutting unnecessary spending, looking for other ways to gain an income, or actually buy assets with some money and then use the revenue from those assets to pay down that debt. Having things that you can control and moving forward on those things does help motivation, in my experience.
Yeah. Maybe you and your sister band together and you decide we're going to get out of our student loans around the same time. We're going to work on this together.
Or at least work together.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why people who do Financial Peace University are so successful, because they have a group of people who are trying to accomplish the same thing, and they can say, yeah, it is really hard when you want to go buy mozzarella sticks, but you can't because you have debt or whatever. I mean, the group pursues debt repayment with, and I quote, gazelle intensity.
There you go.
All right, that's all we have for our debt repayment advice, I think.
All 7 steps.
Final thoughts?
Do it.
Do it.
The content in this video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. Investing in securities involves risk, including the potential loss of your entire investment. Always conduct your own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor or legal professional before making any investment decisions. The opinions expressed in this video are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views of Ridge, Angel Funding, or VAS Portal.